Welcome everyone. This is the Google Classroom and Writable webinar. I am Heidi. I'm one of the co-founders of Writable, and CJ, who also goes by Charlton. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, it's funny. It's Charlton. I also go by CJ. Charlton.
Oh, that's true.
Hi, everyone.
Just to say that this is just to cover Classroom and Writable. If you use those two great tools together, or some of you also might be using HMH Ed, that's great. There's tons of other learning opportunities coming up. We tend to do them in 30-minute chunks. And what we're going to do today is we'll go through how you log in and sort of find an assignment in Writable very quickly. And then we'll kind of look at how Writable and Google Classroom really talk to each other all throughout the experience. Just for those who are new, because I know we have a few, this 2-minute video down at the bottom is a great place to start. If you're just, maybe Writable was purchased for you, or you don't own Writable yet and you're considering it, those two features at the bottom left are really great, just kind of 10,000 foot level. But generally, schools come to us for 3 reasons. One, we have 1,000 rubric items and 1,000 assignments and prompts in the app. So there's a lot of great practice from, whether it be from reading partners, from curriculum leaders like HMH, from every kind of essay or graphic organizer you could think of, we've got inside this practice area. And then also 5 types of feedback. So any kind of feedback that you can use earlier in the writing process to scaffold and really give your students that feedback, it's going to drive better revision. And that's really what drives writing growth. So that's really what Writable is all about, is the practice and feedback. And then some people actually use us for assessment. So all the common assessments you might do as a district to kind of get a pulse on, I know we lost a little bit of time last year with students. It's hard to tell where they're at right now. So doing a lot of districts will come in and do common assignments or common assessments throughout the year in Writable, just to kind of monitor and change up their instructional planning and what they're doing as a team. So that's Writable. And then there's a video in here that's in 5 minutes going to show what CJ and I are going to do in 30. And so it's a great resource as a leave behind or to share with colleagues. But really why you would use the two together is to save yourself some time, right? And to keep your students in the platform that they may be using every day. So, if they're used to using the Google Classroom stream or even the classwork area, you can put all your Writable assignments right in there. And then when you grade in Writable, we're going to show you how those grades automatically go to the gradebook in Classroom. So the first thing you'll always do now, if you're using Writable with HMH Ed, you would launch into Writable at least once through Ed. So that's kind of how you get your textbook readings and all your content that HMH makes. For everyone else, and you're going to log in at app.writable.com. And you just log in with Google. So that's really, most of the time, that's your school email address if it's powered by Google. And then that's obviously what connects through to Classroom. So let me just go in. And what I will say real quick before we leave the slides behind is, again, if you're coming in from another platform like HMH Ed or like one of the other LMSs we work with, like Schoology or Canvas, anytime you see this connect an account with Google and you want to use our Google features and Google Classroom, just go ahead, and you and your students need to do that. It usually pops up the very first time, but it's a great thing to do because it's going to give you all the access to the things we're going to show you today. So when you first come in to Writable, most people start in the Explore area. And because so many of you are new, I'm just going to show a few of the assignments that we love at this time of year. And what you're going to do is you're looking for an assignment in our library, or you can always create your own assignment in 3 steps. So it'll guide you through whether it's a response to reading or just a quick write at this time of year. You can make your own with any set of rubrics, or you can use one of ours. So some of the fun stuff in here, I'm in as a middle school teacher here, but we did launch a whole library of social emotional prompts. So that's all based on the CASEL framework. If those of you who know CASEL, there's a little description about it here. But this is a great set of stuff to start because they're quick writes. They are narrative writing, but at this time of year, a lot of them will focus on, just kind of getting to know the students, kind of reflecting on different topics. So those are great. If you want to start with your kind of just a quick write to get to know where students at in terms of writing, those would be under short response, and they're organized by genre. We have some great skill focused work, which people tend to use those as they work through a genre. So maybe you want to go through, in informational writing, it would cover, or here, this one's argument, would cover the main skill areas, and each is paired with reading passages from partners like Time for Kids or Smithsonian. So those are great. And so you'll just go through and think about, what are you trying to do right now? Now, if you're using HMH curriculum, all of that will be loaded in here. So whether it's into literature or English 3D. And then there's some great stuff down in curricular resources too. So if you're differentiating a lot, you've got students at 3 or 4 different levels in your class, it'll scaffold out different levels of support for students. A lot of people love just the grammar practice at this time of year. So anything that you want to try, you would just kind of go in, and I'll just go into our KQED video collection here. When you find something that you like the look of, you're going to, let's talk about endangered species, copy. You can preview the assignment, and then you're going to copy it over to my assignment. So basically what that does is it puts it over in my assignment. So that's just a little bit about, when you first come in, what you're kind of thinking about is, how do I want to bring the writing process to my students for the first time? Where wouldn't I mind, adding a little bit more feedback and maybe scaffolding them a little bit more in the writing process. So now you can work with this assignment, you can edit it. We won't go too deep into editing and all that, but just know that now it's in my library and I can make changes to it, and then I can assign it. The next thing though is, how do I get Google Classroom to talk to Writable? Well, it's really easy. There's no rostering here going on. It's just a simple import button. So it's not like a tech director has to import and do all this stuff. You literally get to decide as the teacher which classes you're going to bring in from Classroom by clicking this button. And then you can decide, do you want to bring them all in or just a couple? And so you would click import, and then they show up here. And the roster of students, again, anyone that's in Google Classroom will then come into Writable. And so that's all the setup that there really is to do to connect the two programs. You'll notice things in here, and CJ will go through some tips at the end about co-teachers and things like that. But that's really what you do to get started between Google Classroom and Writable. And then when you're ready to push something to your students in Google Classroom, you would go into my assignments and make sure this one I'm going to do is one of our Time for Kids articles. It's a great, I think the Lexile level is middle school, kind of 6th grade. And I'm going to preview this just to make sure that I know what it looks like before I send it to my students. And so over on the left, if the assignment has a reading passage, it would show up on the left. Here, there's a range of Lexiles, and there's also a Spanish version on a lot of our materials. So the student would be reading and annotating on the left. If you're using HMH curriculum, that core reading passage from Into Literature would be on the left. The prompt is always here, and the student would just write in this box. And then last but not least, let me just move all my Zoom stuff out of the way. I would open up and see the student-facing checklist. So the checklists or the rubric items here are always in student-friendly terms. We want students to kind of understand, what are my goals as a writer here? And you may go on to use these in peer review, in self-review, and more metacognitive types of review with the students, or you may just choose to grade this assignment. We'll get into that later. So when you're ready to assign, you click assign, and then you're just going to send it over to that roster that you just imported. So I have a Google Classroom class called First Period. I'm going to click next. And then this is where I get to decide which of those feedback types that Writable offers do I want to support students with. Well, at this point in the year, I probably would start with a self-review. It's a little bit, it just has them look at their work one more time with those checklists and decide how am I going to revisit my writing as I go into a revision. And then, I would probably work up to peer review a little bit later, or maybe for a longer process writing piece, I would enable peer review. But at this time of the year, a lot of teachers are starting with self review. And then I like to turn on all of our AI supports. So this is just going to give the student some support on, structure and organization, some grammar assistance, and also Turnitin, which we called originality check, if they're checking for plagiarism. So that's all built in. And then this is the most important step. You've got to remember to add this. This checkbox here is going to be the thing that then sends it to the students over in the classroom stream. So I'm going to click assign. And then that assignment is live with students. And I'm going to now turn it over to, you can see I can remind myself when I assigned it, how many students are in that class, and I'll start to see the status build over here. But I'm going to stop sharing, and CJ is going to show you what it looks like from a student perspective.
Thank you, Heidi. So now that the assignment has been pushed to Google Classroom Stream, the student can go into his or her Google Classroom account and navigate to the class that the assignment has been assigned. So in this case, it's first period ELA. And as you can see in Google Classroom Stream, the assignments are listed there, and our latest assignment that was assigned by Heidi, the Meet Stevie assignment, is at the top of the list.
Oh, actually, you might have to hit refresh, CJ, because I had 2 Meet Stevies and one is going to be, there okay. You go, that one. Thanks.
No problem. So the student can go into Google Classroom, click on the assignment, and inside of the assignment, you will see, trying to get this out of my way here, you will see the Writable link to navigate to Writable and complete the assignment. So after I've clicked on the link, it takes me into Writable and to the student dashboard. And you can see the read and write here for the students to get started. They would just click on that and it appears that Heidi has assigned some reviews, that the reviews would be on the right to complete peer reviews for their classmates. But right now we're just going to focus on the read and write for the student submission. So we'll click on read and write, and that will bring in our assignment for the student. Just like the teacher view, the reading is on the left and the writing area is here. So I've already baked up some writing for the student to enter into his submission, and go ahead and put that there. So now I've got my writing. If I had typed this either over the course of one sitting, or I can always write and come back to it, as Writable will auto save the writing, so it's no worries there. The student can continue to write and we will save the work. But in this case, I've got my writing here, and as you can also see here, we have some AI insights working in the background for this assignment, and visible to the student and teacher are the suggestions. So in this case, it's suggesting that possibly I need to put a comma that I may have missed. In this yellow underlined section, it's checking some of the subject matter for active verbs, seeing if I may want to change what I use for my verb usage there. And then the red is letting me know, hey, there might be a misspelling here with this word. So I can choose to click on it, and after I hover over it, and accept that suggestion. So there you can see it changed the spelling of personable to the correct spelling. So that's always a great feature for the students to have if you enable it, for them to go in there and take a look at their own writing. There's also features that you might see at the top right-hand corner, where I can click on export to Google Drive, and it will show the Google Doc integration. So with this not being a Google Doc that I have right now, it's saying create a new Google Doc, but if I had a Google Doc, it would just say, kind of export to Google Docs.
Yeah, and that's really just to add to that, CJ. So we really want to make sure the student can portfolio the work. If you guys are really big as a Google district and you're saving all the student work in Google, we want to make sure that we're following suit. So every piece of writing and writable can be exported to Google if you've authenticated with Google. And also teachers can open all the work, print it, save it out to PDFs or Google Drive, Google Docs, so really writing and scores for the teacher can be exported, but for the student, they can get their writing out too.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. So I'm gonna submit this assignment as is. Gives my teacher Heidi some work to do with me in our revision cycle, and I'm gonna click submit.
Okie dokie.
I'm gonna pass it back over to Heidi.
All right, and I don't know if you guys saw that, but it just asked the student, do you want to turn this in on Classroom? And so they would click yes. And that's what flips the, in Classroom, you guys probably know about the turned in, where it says turned in, yes or no. That's what makes that set to turned in. So the teacher can always monitor progress there. So let me share my screen again. And we're gonna go back into this assignment. So here's the assignment that CJ just submitted. And meet Stevie. So now I can kind of see, similar to how you guys would see it in Classroom. So you can of course see it in Classroom. Here's how it might look in Classroom. So I've got, if I see, on the people side, I'm gonna see who's turned stuff in the stream. If I go into this assignment here, which isn't the right Meet Stevie, I'll just refresh. You'll see the turned in statuses. You can always kind of keep tabs on it inside Google Classroom, but of course you can always do that in Writable. So here's the assignment that he just completed. What most teachers will do is just come in and see, okay, I have 3 students here and about a third have turned them in. So maybe it's a time to give some feedback. And so what I'll do is just click on the section or the class from Classroom here. And writable grading is a little bit emphasizing earlier feedback, lighter feedback earlier if you can. I know not everyone has time to do that on every assignment. It really depends on what it is. But we're going to tell you a lot about what's going on under the hood of your students' writing so that ideally you can get to them along the way in a way that you can decide, I only want to do my on-watch kids right now, or maybe you have an eye for word choice at this point in the writing process. You're looking at our AI and our grammar and style. So things like that you can decide. So this is just showing me that 33% of my classes turn stuff in pretty early in the assignment. This is starting to show me, that our AI is picking up some issues with grammar specifically. And, then I can kind of see who's on watch. Well, the student's on watch. What puts a student on watch is either a low peer review score, a low teacher score, or something in the AI is saying the student, might need some support. And here you can see the grammar is coming up pretty low. And so let's just take a look and maybe give the student some support. Right away, I can see their most recent draft. Even if they haven't submitted, you're going to see the latest writing. So kind of like you would in a Google Doc, you're going to see the latest writing. Here I can see if I just have time to give 2 seconds of words of encouragement, like an over-the-shoulder conference, I would just say, great job. Keep up the good work, and then send that off. But I can also kind of go do a look at the AI. So I can look at that grammar aid piece that CJ saw. I can kind of see what they're struggling with there. I could go into Turnitin and see, do we have an originality or plagiarism challenge that's going on? In this case, it's going to show that the writing is 100% plagiarized. So because we use it for demos a lot. So this is a big red flag. You see a high originality score, that means that they probably have taken it from another student, and so that's something you can work on with the student. But so the nice part about the AI is you can decide, do I want to keep this on or off for my students? Like in this assignment, you can see all those AI supports are on, but a lot of teachers will just keep those off, and then we're going to show you the AI insights. So it's almost like you have a little cheat sheet in your back pocket to see what the AI is saying as a teacher, but the students may not have it turned on because maybe it's too much for them to think about all those things this early in the writing process, right? So you really have to decide in Writable as a teacher how you want to guide that feedback process and what types of feedback you're bringing into the student. But if I click on grade now, this is really going to take you into your stack of papers, right? So if you had 20 papers, it's going to present you with the same rubric that we saw on the student side, but now it's more in a grading, in a 4-star rubric. And these could be 3 stars, these could be 4 stars. Many districts have their own stored district rubrics, which is great. Many people will not like one of ours and put others from our rubric bank in. So you can reword these, you can mix and match, you can delete. So anything you see on the screen is really up to you. Here on the left is the student's writing. So pretty good start. They've written quite a bit. Maybe I'm going to say that I think that there's a hook here. So I'm going to do a 3-star on that. But perhaps the main idea isn't quite as developed yet. And so, I think I'm going to probably say, if I highlight, just like in Google Docs, you can highlight and kind of say, okay, well, maybe here I'm going to say, well, this is pink. Can you clarify your main idea? Because I'm making it pink, it's going to pop right underneath the rubric item for main idea. So when the student gets it, they can hover over the text just like they could in a Google Doc, but we're also letting you tie that to the rubric. We call that rubric match. So it just helps you get a little bit more precise. If you're giving a student a lower score on something, what drives students crazy is if they just have a generic rubric and they're just getting 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, and they don't know why. This lets you tie the rubric to the actual, passage or what they've written. And so maybe here, there's a lot of support in this piece of writing, but it's kind of all over the place. So, maybe I want to say, details you have, can you cut them down and focus your evidence, whatever that is. So you can go through and do that. It will also store all your comments. So if you end up saying the same thing again and again, and you start typing the word evidence, it will bring up everything that you've ever used. And I haven't used much yet, but it will bring up your stored comments. So anything we can do to save time on the grading process is there. The last thing is sometimes people want to add a little piece of video or audio feedback, just higher engagement. This was great during the pandemic, but then a lot of teachers are just sticking with it, especially with students who have maybe supports, they're on a 504 or an IEP, or your English language learners that just need to hear from you a little bit more personally. You would just go like this. Hey, CJ, I love the writing. Can you just work a little bit on tying your evidence to your point a little bit better? Thanks. And then that will pop that video right in here for the student when they next see it. So just a way to add more engaging feedback. You're not going to do that on every student, but it's nice as an option. And then I would click submit. So that's really how you would grade in Writable. Again, starting from just that sneak peek, seeing what the AI is telling you, all the way through to a full grade using a rubric. And as soon as I did that, let me just move my over in Classroom. As soon as I hit that submit button, we want to go see in the grade book in Classroom what happened. Here's my grade book. I don't know what Classroom calls it. I call it a grade book, but I guess it's just grades. And then you've got the Meet Stevie and sort of that score. So again, let's just look at what we gave. So in Writable, I gave a 78%. And this could be points-based grading, or this could be percentage. And whatever your setting is for Classroom is going to be the boss. So if you've set Classroom to be, to put this in percentage terms, this will be in percentage terms. So it kind of listens to Classroom as the boss of your grades. And you still have to return the grades, and you can always override it. Let's say I was like, oh, that was a little harsh. Maybe I'm going to give them an 82. You can still type in a new grade, and then of course you would still do return to the student, which would send it back to them. So that's really the experience. We're going to now look at. I'm going to hand it back to CJ, right? CJ.
Yep. Yes. So tips for success. One of the big things that we want to focus on here is when you're in your classes, if you don't see a Google class that is this year's current and active class, click on the import Google classes button to bring in your new classes. Just like a new school year, we want to kind of reset up our classroom physically in person. We want to kind of clean up our classes in Writable as well. So import your newest classes. If you have old classes, we call this the hamburger menu off to the right. It's the 3 lines. You can click that and archive a class just to kind of get it out of your list of active classes that can be assigned to. And then you'll have your roster that is displayed there. And then you can always see, it gives you kind of like a little timestamp at the bottom right-hand corner. It says last synced less than a minute ago. Just lets you know that you've been syncing as of late. If you're working with HMH Ed, it's very important that you launch Writable first from HMH Ed before connecting Google Classroom or accessing assignments from Google Classroom. That launch will initiate your account and make sure that all your accounts that you connect, such as Google Classroom or such as a Google account, connects to the HMH Ed account as well. So you don't end up with duplicate accounts. And we've had some horror stories about that happening to teachers and students. So you want to make sure, with that being said, that you don't bypass this wizard here for new users, teachers and students. You want to go ahead and click that connect with Google option so that when you launch from HMH Ed, you can connect that Google account from that screen right there. And also we, a lot of the times we do, professional development. We may have co-teachers just in general. You want to make sure that you have your co-teachers set up as teachers. And then that gives them the flexibility as co-teachers to assign, to grade. They pretty much have the same flexibility and permissions as the regular teacher. And lastly, we showed you that place in Google or add to Google Stream checkbox when you're assigning the assignment. If we understand that teachers sometimes put their work for students to grab in classwork, so you can drag and drop your Writable assignment inside of classwork. So if that's you, don't worry, we got you covered. And then, Google Docs has its perks. It has its features, and we take advantage of those features. So if you're going to use Google Docs, you can just embed a Google Doc right there into your Writable assignment, and you won't have to worry about going in and outside of Google Docs and in and outside of Writable. You can just do all of your Google Doc integration within the Writable assignment. And Heidi,
I was going to say that's a great option if you've got students. The most favorite feature that we hear about Google Docs and why it's used inside Writable is the voice to text. So if you have students on accommodations that like to speak their writing first, they could do an audio submission in Writable, or they could, you could embed the Google Doc and they could speak their writing and then kind of move it around and then submit it inside Writable. So it's totally up to you. The students it doesn't work so well for is if you have students on iOS or iPad devices. Google Docs just with Writable causes a lot of app switching. So for those folks, we would say just use Writable without Google Docs, but it is an option. And CJ's showing resources here. There's a video, 5 links down, that talks about that piece if you're interested in how do I use Google Docs inside Writable.
Yes, if you do have questions, we have our live chat. It's located inside the app. I am one of those people that you will reach live. and in person. So for teachers,
Yeah, so inside Writable, as CJ was saying, we have a live chat. And you're just gonna look up near your profile picture up in the top right corner. There's a little question mark. And so when you open that, you can search our knowledge base. So let's say I just forgot everything that I just heard, which I know it's a lot, and you search for classroom, you can see all of our classroom articles and kind of go in and read, read right here how to do step by step everything we're showing. Or you can go into the chat and just say, so talk to a live person. We're not bots, we're real people, and we often get on screen shares if you happen to be in like a PLC meeting and you're trying to navigate it together. So you can send us a message inside Writable as well. Yeah, so definitely give it a go. Use the live chat, use the resources, and we hope we see you at another training event soon, and that we can get you going and started on a much better writing journey inside Writable.